Just waiting a couple of seconds to make sure that everything is okay. And just waiting for my guest to join us. And while I wait for her to send me a request, I'll just welcome you to the group, to Feel at Home Anywhere in the World group. And I am do 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 do. Let's see if these work, if we can get it going. Yay!
Let's see if I can rotate.
We're here, we've done it. We will never let technology defeat us. Okay, fantastic. So welcome everyone to our Facebook Live in Feel at Home Anywhere in the World. Lovely to have you here with us, Ellen. Thank you for watching. And I am really excited to welcome Vivian Winterhoff. Do I pronounce it right, Vivian? Yeah.
The English way, yes.
What's the German way?
Winterhoff. Just a little
Winterhoff.
different.
Winterhoff.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome. I just do a really quickly introduction of myself if we haven't met before. I'm Fra Panella. I am a community gatherer, a group facilitator, and a belonging coach. And today we are talking about finding our feet and feeling our boundaries. And we have a really special guest with us, Vivian, who is the founder of Joy in Movement, which is, I think, is just like a beautiful name for a business, really. Something that I imagine little people have been quite good at doing, and then when we grow up, we forget to keep this joy in a movement. So what a beautiful reminder of bringing joy in our lives. I really love the work that you do and the way that you support other soul-led entrepreneurs to take better care of themselves and their work and keep a good work-life balance by sharing really restful and refreshing practices. But you know, like the meditations that you do, the visualizations that you do, and all these things. And but yeah, today is very much about, we're going specifically in some parts of the body, as I like to do, this metaphor that our body is like our home, and we have a different part, in the same way that there are different rooms in our homes, then there is different parts of our body. And I love the fact that you've chosen the feet. And how our feet can help us with our boundaries, perhaps, I don't know. But before we go into all of that, I would like to ask you, Vivian, to tell us, how do you feel at home in your body? What is your approach to that?
Thank you, Fran. And thank you for inviting me to talk in this group as well. I hope you can hear me okay because you're very faint for me and somehow I can't increase the volume. So
Am I
I
fainted?
think it's something on my end, but I hope my volume is fine. I can still hear you.
Mm.
So yeah, how do I feel at home in my body? Well, it's still a journey that I'm on. But I think it was something that I was going to mention at the end that we all need some space and time to ourselves to kind of um, remember. If you're talking about different parts, you're talking about the different parts of the body, just coming back to ourselves, reassembling ourselves. And so for me, what helps so much are these somatic practices that I do. And for me, what that involves is most of the time is coming into some form of stillness and just sensing into my body. So,
Mm.
one of my favorite things to do is just to actually lie down on my back and then just allow myself to just completely rest on the floor, to relax, to release. And I'll guide people through this as well, but what I then what I then do is to really sense everything that's happening in the body, because even though I'm being still myself, like as a whole, there's all these things happening and all these things adjusting. And maybe initially lying down for me, it can be sometimes painful depending on how much I've been sitting. My lower back, really complains about that. But then over time, and I might move a little bit, I adjust, my body adjusts. And for me, what the practice is really giving my body some love. And I think many of us, and especially women, we just grow up with constantly criticizing our body. And I I certainly practice that as well. And so it's just a remembering that, wow, it's doing so much for me right now. And, keeping me alive, regenerating, providing me this home in this world, this home, depending on how spiritual you are or your approach, it's the home for our soul in this existence, in this fleshy existence. And so for me, it's coming back to giving it some love. But before I can do that, I need to come into some form of meditation or just some stillness, just a
Mm.
space for myself. Yeah,
Mm.
and that's daily. Needs to happen
Daily.
daily.
Beautiful.
Mm.
And yeah, I can see that there is a few people watching. So if you have any questions for Vivian, please feel free to type it into the comments and then we can get to them in a little bit. But yeah, I absolutely adore and fully resonate with what you're saying about the first step of coming home to our body is to give our body love. And I don't think we can say this, you know, any times enough, especially as women, and the importance of really appreciating ourselves and our body for what they bring us and enable us to do. And yeah, so I was just wondering, you know, how you come back to the body, you relax, you develop an awareness, you connect with it, and then how how do you experience boundaries in a somatic
Mm.
way?
Mm. There is so much to this topic. And this week in my Joyful Breaks program, which is essentially a somatic meditation program, and then on Thursday I'm holding an event about boundaries. And where I like to start is um, with the skin.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very tangible very tangible, right? I mean, this is how we think. This is like our body is encased in this envelope of our skin. And so sensing into the wonderful, like the layers of the skin, you might even touch. Um, and just starting there with with an inquiry that brings us out of our minds and into the body and into the sensations. So the sensory awareness, which can be so powerful for just stopping all the thinking processes. Um, and from there, one can also sense into, I'm pausing because I'm feeling into it to find the right words.
Sure.
You can start to sense into how we also have this energetic body, um, and how maybe the body does extend beyond the skin. And so, I mean, in very practical cultural terms, and I forgot to look up the reference, I can't remember who it is. Maybe it's Edward Hall or someone, but even talking about the space in front of the body, the space to the side of the body, the space to the back of the body, and how we interact with other people and how comfortable we are with people coming close, with people, you know, the when people feel distant, how distant is that? And that kind of determines our space. And culturally speaking, different people have different spaces. So that's kind of what you start to tune into, um, from a somatic perspective, just how much space is there in front of me and how much space is there behind me? Where does my body really begin and end? Um, it's really kind of hard to describe in words. It's kind of something that, when you're guided through it, it becomes more, it becomes easy to tap into that sense. I'm wondering if it resonates with anyone watching. Um,
Mm.
yeah, because it's good to get feedback sometimes, and you're like, am I just, putting words out there, or is it actually intelligible what I'm saying?
Well, if it resonates for the people who are watching, then maybe you can give us a like or a heart so that we know if what we're saying. There is often a bit of a delay, but
Mm.
yeah, um, then we'll have a clear feedback on that. But I really like what you're saying about the fact that the body is it's like the the skin is our boundary on a very physical level, but actually there is also the energetic body and that it can expand. And this sense that um, you know the space that expands in the front, it might be different than the space that expands in the back. um, and then just wondering if you could say a little bit more about that before we move on to others, and also to let you know that we got Joe that tells us that it resonates completely and she's loving the flow, and she said no, it's the intention as much as the words.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Um, yes, what was I going to share?
So, so it's like this idea of going like the body, the energetic body that expand at the
Yes.
front of the body and at the
Yes,
back.
I feel like also from a somatic perspective, it's very important to, make space to tune into that, to know when also our boundaries have been, violated is a very strong word, but what what makes us feel uncomfortable, what makes us feel comfortable, what helps us feel comfortable rather. Um, and I'm just, I've been thinking the last few days, knowing that we were going to be talking about this and knowing about the group, and how international we all are, that different, again, in the different cultural contexts, it can be quite difficult to navigate that, especially if the culture is very different to where you're originally from. And so it's just being really aware of, you know, if someone's coming too close to you, and how do you navigate that, how do you, or if like touch as well is one of those, even like talking about the skin and the boundaries. So um, and I feel like there can be a fluidity there over time as well, and that at different points in time, the, I'm doing this because the boundaries can, they're not always fixed. It's
Yeah.
like depends on the situation, depends on how you are. And so I feel like it's important to just be aware of this fluidity and yeah, it affects how we relate to other people, how resilient we can be. You talked about that emotional reservoir, I think, Farah.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of tuning into this fluidity regularly, see, where you're at with the boundaries of your body.
Yeah, and
I hope
yeah,
I'm
thank you
making
for
sense.
absolutely, you're making sense to me, Lister, but thank you for bringing it up how international this group is and how differently we might perceive the space front or behind our body and how much our energetic body expand beyond the physical and how willing or not we might be to have other people coming into. So here in the UK, the personal space is really clearly bounded, and is that there is like this invisible lines that goes equally at the front and at the back. And this me as an Italian, as not just an Italian, but it's like someone who's quite touchy. It's taken me some time to learn where this invisible personal space starts and ends, for example, and what an affront it can be to you inadvertently step into it,
Mm,
and uh, and all the dance that goes around
yes,
respecting each other's
yes.
invisible personal space. But I know that it's like you have traveled, you're German, you lived in other European countries and the Philippines, and then now you're in the US. Tell us about your personal experience of did that change in the different countries that you lived in?
Well, it's funny you're asking that now because I was just reflecting on language as well and how the boundaries can be reflected in language and how British, I mean, because I lived in England for almost 14 years, so
Hmm.
I'm very familiar with the British culture, and I almost became a British citizen.
Oh
If
yeah,
I had
that's
applied,
right.
I would have received the passport, but I didn't before I
Yeah.
left to come here to the US. Um, I feel like, in a sense, for me, my experience was much more in terms of boundaries with the language, um, in the sense of, where are you more polite and where can you be more direct? Um, and being German and then going to Australians, I think, are pretty direct. And then coming to the UK, um, it took a little adjusting to not cross people's boundaries in the UK and be so direct that they thought I was rude. Um, so in a sense, for me, it was because and I think a lot of it is because the cultures that I ended up immersing myself in were really what we call Western.
Hmm.
If I'd
Hmm.
gone, if I don't know, if I'd been in India or the Middle East or something, I'm sure my experience would have been quite different, physically as well. But I feel like because, in the sense, the cultures were similar, even though they are very different,
Yeah.
underneath the surface. For me, it was more language, um, behavioral kind of that dance you were talking about. Yeah, I mean, I often make a joke where, like, the British way of saying yes is it starts with, oh no, I couldn't possibly have the last biscuit, and then you have to insist, oh no, please do have it, whereas in Germany it might be more like, okay, would you like the last biscuit? And be like, oh yeah, sure, thank you. It's like if I did that in
Yeah.
England, I might be, I'm very much stereotyping, but
Yeah, a little bit.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that there is a lot that can be said about the use of language in different culture, and how and the relationship between language and politeness, and also the relationship between language and wanting to make people feeling welcome and accepted, and uh, in there is a dance that I see around language, and also like trying to make sure that everyone feel like they can do what they want. That is interesting and really fascinating in itself. But I'd like to bring it back to the body and to the somatic experiences that we can all have, and expand into around our our bodies, and the space around them. And you were talking about how the boundaries can be more or less fluid, and how in some instances it can be different cultures, but it can also be different contexts, that you might allow your boundaries to be more relaxed
mhm.
or soft, and in other contexts you might have some boundaries that they might be a little bit more rigid and a little bit
Yes.
more clear. And how do you see that from a somatic point of view, from with your embodiment experience and knowledge and practices?
I mean, it's rooted in the way the body is physically created too. So our nervous system, and um, in the somatic practices, we'll often say, can you sort of lean into the back body, or can you open up the front body? And the front is of it, and the front is very vulnerable. Um,
Mm.
we have our soft gut, which is completely unprotected by any kind of bone or anything, right in the front. Just the other day, sorry, my lighting is very strange here.
I can feel it.
Just the
I
other
can
day,
feel it as you said it.
I encountered a deer. I was like 2 meters away from a deer, and it was not really scared. And I was thinking, this is a wild animal. Of course, I can't go up and pet it, but its hooves, will, like, if they're sharp, they can gut you if they really get the right kick. And so from just a very purely physical perspective, in the
Mm.
in the experiential anatomy, which I study in somatics, we start to learn about the body. Oh, this is my soft front, and sometimes I just feel like protecting it more, and I feel like sort of curling up more. And then what is protecting it? Well, my back is protecting it. um and the back is the backbone as well, and that for me is like, well, again, touching on language, it's use your backbone, like,
Mm.
um for me it's like, okay, can I stand in my authenticity? Can I When I'm standing in my authenticity, what happens? Do I, confidently, I automatically will sit more upright. I'll expose this a little bit more, but I have that backbone as well to support me. So these are sort of examples of how you might explore, also through language, but language is a huge part of it, and the poetry as well, is a huge part of it, of the language, how you might explore in somatics, yeah, how your boundaries change, and how your sense of your body, where it begins and where it ends, changes.
Yeah, no, I really like what you say there about the fact that the front of the body is there is less bones, and so it's more exposed, and there is all the guts and the organs, a lot of
The
vital
organ.
organs that have that need protecting, and so the curling up. While at the back we have our spine that somehow you know shields us from
Mm-hmm.
others,
Yes.
and yet at the same time, like the reminding of always going back to the language, from the body to the language and the poetry, and how the boundaries between these different things are fluid in itself. And that is yeah, do you want to
Yes,
say
and it
something?
reminds me of what we chose for the title, which was Finding Our Feet, which you referred to at the beginning, and it's just something that came to me. I was like, well, finding yourself authentically, if it's in a foreign culture, a foreign country, a foreign place, a place where you are not necessarily, where you didn't grow up, or where you don't necessarily feel at home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we start with is, okay, where am I right now? We find our feet, we find gravity, we find, for me, it's like the connection of the bones in my body with the bones of the place that I'm in. I know you talk about the landscape connection as well, which is so beautiful. And that for me is, it's part of that. But it's not only the landscape, it's the cultural landscape, it's the people as well. Um, but that, for me, that is a very apt metaphor for, but also something you can feel in your body for finding that place where you can stand in your authenticity that goes right up the backbone, right? Like from your feet, that energy that goes right up. Yeah,
Gorgeous. That is
yeah.
absolutely, it's so powerful, having the sense of the bones from the feet, and it travels all the way up. And that links beautifully with a question that we just received. But it says, Emily says, it's such an important conversation. Could you say something about safety and somatics when living in cultures that are different to our own?
I've been reflecting on this a lot. Yeah, my only experience of really radically different cultures, and I don't know what necessarily what you mean by different so much, that like it's a spectrum, right? Um, has been when I've traveled and not necessarily lived in a place. So, for example, I've been to Zambia. I've been to like, it's just thinking of the really different places. I've been Malaysia, I suppose, um, and some of the stories you hear ahead of going is like, oh, be really careful, especially as a white woman. Um, be careful, watch your belongings, like don't go to places
Mm.
alone, and um,
Emily
I think
is
some people are very
specifying.
sorry. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Emily is just responding to your question, and she's saying that this. If you could say something about the safety and somatics when living in cultures that are different, and she
Mm-hmm.
says, for example, African people living in European countries.
Mm. Well, I that's a really tough question to answer because I'm I'm not I'm not them. It's like, from somatics is so much from a personal perspective. If I were, I feel like if I were gonna say something, I'd really be making it up out of thin air. um, I mean, I think a universal, I believe a universal practice for for finding a feeling of safety would be to come to create, like what I was referring to at the beginning, to create a space for oneself every day, to remember, to come back together, to to sort of digest, maybe at the end of the day, digest what has happened during the day, maybe even ask that question, like, where did I feel safe, where did I not feel safe, and to reflect on that, if you have that capacity, if it's to journal, or depending on how you express yourself, whether it's words or maybe it's some art, or that helps you just bring out what might be subconscious and what might be under the surface that takes some time to tune into. I think it can be really hard to do on one's own, but certainly possible. And so that would create an awareness. I'm just, trying to put myself in that position, but I feel like that would create an awareness of, where you can maybe ease into situations with more like care for yourself, so you're not putting yourself out there. If you have that choice, even, sometimes people they just have to, even maybe sometimes it might just be going to the grocery store that feels like really unsafe. It's really, that is a really good, very complex question.
Well, I could say I really appreciate what you're saying about coming back to ourselves and taking the time to reflect, to feel first, and then to reflect and to define for ourselves what safety is. And what I'd like to add on that is that coming from a Mediterranean country, where there is a real sense of connection with the whole of the Mediterranean. So that is like it's Italy, Spain, it's Portugal, but it's also the north of Africa, and then moving to the north of Europe, where the climate is different, but also there is a whole different way of experiencing bodies and safety. So safety comes from closeness rather than from respecting the personal space. So that is very clear in the UK. So instead of feeling safe when we are apart and we're separate, and there is a bit of like not invading my personal space, when I am with Southern European, or with North African, I feel like I can go back to my own sense of safety. And so when I walk, we tend to walk. I can't do it here with just one. Let me see. But we would put like the elbow. We will interlock the elbow with the elbow, doing it like that.
Yes,
and
yes.
and yeah, if that makes sense. And that is just and it's like, so you do kind of a human chain of like 2 or 3 friends that just walk together like that. And it's like, if it's 3 of you, you're gonna bump into one another all the time. And there is a real sense of like this fluidity of the bodies and the space that you were talking about before. But that for me personally is a different just the safety in relation to bodies and space and culture can mean different things.
Yeah, thank you. See, that's the perfect. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the light right here, but I'm gonna move
It's
a little
fine.
bit.
The light is fine, darling. We can see you.
Well, that's the perfect example of why me answering that question, would be like, I don't know from experience. Now I can understand better, like, oh yes, right. When that gives you a sense of safety, being closer to others. That sense of, being together in a group, and not being out there all alone. Something I probably wouldn't have come up with because of my background and my culture.
But yeah, we are all different. And then I think that there is a lot that can be said about what makes a woman feel safe in it might be different from a man. It might be different if you're a woman alone. Like, there is so much that could be explored there, right?
Yes.
But
And I think the reflective part is very important, because a lot of that doesn't become conscious until you reflect on it, until you are asking those questions that help you realize, oh, this is what helps me feel safe, or maybe this is how I'm different to my surroundings, and so I have this need that needs to be fulfilled in some way, perhaps, and so then you can do something about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most not prolific, but the most the richest reflections that I had in my life comes from connecting to what I feel in the body. As you
Mm.
say, it all starts from there.
Mm-hmm.
So that is beautiful as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, just conscious of time. And so I would like to ask you if you have anything else that you'd like to say about the space in between the bodies and the and and how we navigate it um, in different contexts of our lives. If that is something that you have experience of knowledge, of something that you guide people
Mm.
through.
Can you word the question a bit differently? Because I'm not quite sure I understand.
Of course. Um, so we talked about the boundaries of our body, so the perception that it's like it's the skin. Um, the the skin is the end of our physical body, and then there is the energy body that can expand at the front and the back. And then we talked about how far they expand. It will depend on the day and how these might be fluid.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to put in the picture another body with the fluid boundaries. And if we have two bodies, how do they negotiate the boundaries? How do they, or how do you explore it rather than negotiate? Negotiate it is further down the line. How do you explore it? Um, where
I
your
feel.
energy.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I feel we've talked about it. I feel you expressed it beautifully in saying that it's a dance. I'm not sure I have anything more to add to that, unless you're trying to
Okay.
get at something that you knew I was maybe going to talk about and I haven't.
um, no, I think it's just maybe I'm just remembering a visualization that you did, and there was something about the perception of our body in relation to trees or something natural. But I did it a month or a while back, so I don't have. But it's fine. It's fine.
I can always
It's
add something in the chat or something
yeah.
that comes
And
to
it's
me.
the beauty. We didn't, like we didn't. Um, it's the beauty to come with our authentic self for who we are and show
Mm.
up for who we are without having to prepare or just to have a conversation and a meeting and an explorations of each other's worlds. And
Yes,
this is a perfect example of that. So thank you for
yes,
that.
yeah. Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. So we talked about the body and how to feel at home anywhere in the world. And we talked about boundaries and we talked about the importance of feet. And I just wanted to go back and let you know that Riona really appreciated something that you said. I want to read it back to you. I have a backbone to support me and protect my soft front.
Mm,
Powerful.
mm,
So this I just want to give it back to you during the live, and
mm.
also wanted to perhaps see if you have anything else you'd like to see about feet and how our feet recognize when we arrive home, as Mary Oliver's poem says.
Oh, yes, Mary Oliver's poem, so beautiful.
If you have anything between the feet and home,
Mm.
or just feet,
Just feet.
it's such an important part of our body, right?
Yes. What was the? I think throughout the course of the day, our body, our feet carry a cumulative weight of 200 tons. Was something that I found out last week. So there's a lot of weight. I mean, that's our connection with the ground. That's our connection with this planet is through our feet or through wherever we're touching the floor, the ground. Um, I don't know if I would have anything to add anymore. Maybe someone else does here, someone who resonates with that, that finding your feet, knowing when you are home, um, through your feet, through maybe there's a sense of settledness, and with that settledness comes that release, right? That, and again, that sense of safety when you feel at home, wherever that might be. If it's even just in your body, there's that you're not on the lookout for what's going to happen next. You can kind of just, your nervous system can unwind and your shoulders can just come down, and you can just settle into your feet if you like, if you're standing. So there is that sense of really connecting more with the ground, because you're allowing yourself to become heavier, and you're allowing yourself to just relax. When you're tense, right, you sort of become quite light. You're not really touching the floor much. If you try that lying down and you tense up, you notice where you're touching the floor, where not, that you'll notice your limbs are not really touching the floor fully. But then if you release, this is actually something that we do quite often, then you start to touch the floor in many different places. So maybe that's a nice metaphor. It's like your feet maybe more fully connect with the floor, with the ground, and your body does too.
And I love what you say about coming home is about relaxing into the body and feeling the heaviness of the body, and so tuning into our bones to help the muscles and the nerves to really become relaxed and soft and tender, so that we can
Yes.
arrive to the
Active
ground.
space.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful. I love that. What a powerful image. And the feet on the ground and the body on the ground and the surface. It's a really it's incredible how the simplest things are often the most powerful one that you can really take away and hold on to, trying to remind yourself of.
Yes. And those can take time and space to come into as well. It's not just a quick 5-minute thing, especially if you don't practice it often. So
Yeah. Well, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all these knowledge and experiences and practices about the body and the feet and the boundaries and the space in between. And I know you have a workshop coming up on boundaries. So if you'd like to say something about that, there might be someone in this group that might be able to join you.
there
You
might
never
be,
know.
although it's an in-person workshop, and I do want to hold it virtually eventually as well. So if anyone might be interested in exploring boundaries more, pop comment in the comments, and if you like, I can reach out to you when I hold it virtually. I'll just keep track of your name. Yeah, I'm holding it this Thursday here in Littleton, New Hampshire. So this is the northeast of the US. If anyone's in this area, I would love to connect. I would be amazed. But yeah, do reach out. And yeah, it's really the workshop is about, or class, I don't even know what to call these things, because it's really an exploration of I'll be guiding you through how a yes feels in the body to you personally, uniquely to you, how a no might feel, how a maybe feels. And we're going to do it through very simple somatic sort of the way I guide people. I tend to get people into a very relaxed state. So guide them through a practice I call conscious rest. And then from there, we start to, because then we've come into a more calm space, we start to really be able to sense into the body more and start to notice when am I ready to move? When am I ready to open up? When do I feel like closing back up again? Again, that opening that front body, allowing the back body to be protective. So we sense into those kinds of things in the body, which helps, will help after the workshop to tune in more to more like, what is my body doing now? Why am I reacting like this? How am I feeling when I'm faced with this decision, whether to say yes, no, to that's all like standing for your boundaries, right? When you say no, I have a boundary here, whether it's around my time, whether it's around my person, even my physical presence, yeah, my energetic presence, whether it's with a friend who's constantly complaining, you have to say no to sometimes. So it's kind of helping you tune into when to say yes, no, and feel into that. Yeah. Ah.
Gorgeous. Yeah, please let us know when you do it online so that we can promote it on here and invite everybody to come. And I will also, if you want to pop a link to your website in the comments, please feel free to do that if you have any other things offering that people might be interested. And yeah, thank you so much also to all of you who have stayed with us for the entirety of the live and commented and still watching. And please do let us know which part of the conversation resonated the most with you. Put it in the comment below. And if you're watching, you could just write replay and then tell us what was the bit that was most relevant. And if you would like to make a connection with Vivian, then feel free to contact her directly. And thank you so much for being with us and talking about home and boundaries and bodies and all of that.
Thank you, Fra. It's an honor and pleasure. Thank you so much. I love the space you hold.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're gonna go and we will see you again next week. But oh, sorry, I forgot. It's my birthday. It's my birthday on Friday. So watch out because it's my birthday. So something's gonna happen. Yeah, brilliant. Right. Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oops.